Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of QIAYDA. QIAYDA means leadership in Arabic. Today, we focus on one of the most important, fundamental, and impactful themes identified during our research: the internal battle. These narratives that influence how we perceive ourselves and our ability to grow personally and professionally. Together, we will explore how to identify these barriers, deconstruct them, and transform them into powerful assets for development and success. To delve deeper into this theme, we have the immense honor of welcoming Dr. Guila Clara Kessous. Guila Clara Kessous is a peace ambassador, UNESCO Artist for Peace, and an executive coach specialized in women empowerment. She has coached more than 500 leaders in France and abroad in both private and public sectors on positive leadership issues. Her current research focuses on key behavioral indicators and burnout in the workplace. She has created her own methodology and offers dedicated coaching on the notion of subtle skills that aims at fostering leadership from the heart, artificial intelligence. She has published in the Harvard Business Review in France and Forbes France. For her work in coaching organizations, she received the International Thought Leadership of Distinction Award 2021 by the prestigious Miko Leadership Group. So, welcome, Gila, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Iba, for having me.
So, our first theme is doubts about competences and legitimacy. It was one of the key themes that emerged from our interviews. And so, leaders have doubts in the beginning of their journeys or while getting their promotion. So, Gila, from your experience, what are the different forms of self-doubt?
So I would say that the different form of self-doubts are really linked to this notion of fraud syndromes. Fraud syndromes is really this idea that I don't deserve what I have. Will I be at the level? And especially, will they discover that I don't deserve the job? It comes from speech that is an internal speech that is convincing us that we are nothing, that we don't have value, and that put us really down. You were mentioning that it could happen, to leaders at the beginning of their job, but what we see is that sometimes it comes also when a leader has a very high position but is faced to a very difficult challenge. So it can be revealed, especially linked with education, with what you lived in your childhood. If you had parents, for example, who keep telling you, you can make it, you're good, we see that impostor syndrome or fraud syndrome is not so much engraved in the person. But depending on the education, sometimes you have parents who would put a lot of doubts on their kids, telling them that they need to be always first, putting a lot of pressure. Same thing with the school system that is basically forcing you to be in competition with others. So I would say that the different type of self-doubts could become from, am I at the level? And am I worth my position? To something that will be more even violent because it touches identity. Do I worth something? And when we see this, and it could, of course, happen no matter your age, no matter your position, when it's like this, there are many ways to calm this internal speech and to really work against what we are calling limited beliefs. And this is what I recommend as a coach, working on your own limited beliefs.
Great. So you're saying that we can overcome these challenges even if we were not raised not to have them. So what would be some of the tools that you would advise to calm this inner voice that is always telling us that we're not worth it?
This inner voice, I call it the negative parrot.
Okay.
You know, this is this little parrot that we have on the shoulder that keeps on telling us, oh, you're not worth it, you're good for nothing. Blah. So basically, this negative parrot is poisoning our life. But I would add something. Today, after working with artificial intelligence, working with ChatGPT, working with all those new tools, I would say that is what makes us human. So a leader today who does not have this moment of doubt is simply what I would call a ChatGPT leader, which is a know-it-all, someone very sure about knowledge, but nothing about heart, nothing about the capacity to wondering whether he has or she has the truth. So we have multiple techniques to work on those limited beliefs. One of the first that I would like to mention today with you is, first of all, to detect this limited belief. It comes from a diagnosis of, let's say, 5 to 10 sentences that I'm writing in order for me to, first of all, be conscious about those limited beliefs and those limitations. So what I'm doing with my coaches, for example, is I ask them, please write down 5 sentences that you think about yourself that is really about negativity.
Okay.
For example, I'm bad in public speaking.
Yes.
For example, I will never succeed to convince my team of something.
I can't do this job. I don't have the skills.
I don't have the skills. Exactly what you're doing. And so when they're doing the list, I'm asking them to transform the limitation and realizing that, in fact, these limited beliefs are limited because they are global. They are not specific. They are really too large. So the I'm not good at public speaking can be transformed once we're going to try to find the specificity. So I'm not good at public speaking could become, once transformed, I could be good in public speaking if I train with someone who is helping me, especially for this specific presentation.
Okay.
I will not be good at this job, it's very general, can be transformed. I could be good at this job if I sit down, have a strategy, and maybe have a way and tools and books in order to better understand the position, have a mentor. So basically, the transformation comes once I want to dig into what I think is a limitation in order to realize that the limitation is only conceptual and not practical. Once we have this transformation, line by line, I ask my coachee to stand up and read out loud the 2 sentences. The I'm not good in that job and I could be good in this job if I'm working with a mentor, for example. And this exercise is helping you to reassure yourself that you're in the good path and that this is possible. Of course, it's more comfortable to doubt about the general idea than to really dig into all the work that I have to accomplish in order to remove the doubt. But this is the task that is asking in order to really be fully empowered with confidence.
But there is a part of accepting imperfection and accepting that we don't know the thing fully yet. So how can we have the courage and not be afraid to fail if we know that we are lacking on some skills, as we just assessed in this exercise, and just go for it, have this push to go for the job or go for the promotion?
So, as I said, the first exercise I offer you to do is really this phase of diagnosis, trying to be conscious about the doubt, trying to be conscious about the work that is requested in order for me to get the competencies. In between, there will be, of course, an emotional journey, whether I will be afraid to get those competencies, whether I would be angry not to have taken those competencies before they're getting the jobs, for example. I really strongly have people understand that this roller coaster is in fact fitting another tool that I strongly advise people to know, which is the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross curve.
Okay.
The Kubler-Ross curve is a very interesting curve because it's called also the transformation curve. When you want to get from state A to a state B, the transformation requests an entire emotional journey. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was a very interesting psychoanalyst, and she was working with people who were at the end of their life, very sick. And she was working with them from when they heard about the fact that this was the last months or last weeks that they have to leave, to the phase of acceptation.
Okay.
And she created this curve showing how you go from the news of learning about the last days that you have to live to the fact of accepting the change. Accepting the change goes from different emotion that you need to accept. First emotion is the denial. I don't have to change. The denial is interesting because it's very close to the doubt. Maybe I should change, but I don't want to get there. So the denial of the people who, learn about this terrible news is, of course I'm not sick. So the denial is really pushing away because of the fear of death. So the first thing is fear. You were talking about fear.
Yes.
The first reaction is, how will I do it? The doubt and the fear. Then the second is anger, trying to find the responsible. In the case of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, responsible were doctors. How come doctors didn't tell me that I should, be in that state? They should have given me a medication. They should have told me. So this is the second phase. In our case, for example, to get competencies, the anger could be, how come I didn't people tell me that I needed to have this competency? I should have been warned. I should have been trained. So this is the complaint and anger part. And then the third emotion is sadness. And sadness be depression. When you have to realize that, oh my God, it's gonna take too much time. I will never get the time. People will see I'm a fraud. So this is the moment of the curve going down. And then slowly, we're going to try to keep going, accepting the imperfection, and realizing that there are still some actions, there are still some things that could be coming. And so this is when the curve will go up. Fortunately, the curve doesn't go from A to B, it has sometimes going transformation, almost accepted, and then going back to depression, to the point where there is a full acceptance. This is who am I. This is what I need. This is in order to accept the transformation that I need to do through me, to be fully in possession of those new skills, and in order to accept me with my imperfection in this new stage of my life. And what is really interesting in this curve is that it could fit for any type of change, from very difficult change, such as the one that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is talking about, to very, I would say, daily life change. I saw it in companies with leaders who have to announce to their team that they are changing location. Changing location could be traumatizing for a team. It could be working for COVID, when people had to learn how to function with a mask. So for me, this tool about accepting imperfection is very interesting, because immediately when you have doubt, when you wonder if yes or no you will get there, you will see yourself, okay, where am I in the curve? Am I in the sadness, so I'm completely depressed? Am I in the anger, still resisting, trying to find who is responsible of this transformation that I never asked? Or am I in the denial? Sorry, I don't want to hear about it. I don't need to have new competencies. So this tool for me is interesting.
Okay, so first we check our mindset and we do our self-diagnosis towards what are the themes that really scares us. And then we try to assess if we are in denial phase or in anger phase.
Exactly.
And we take the time to, before take the decision, just try to analyze this. And now if this fear paralyzes us, for some leaders, for example, most of them did not take the step to get the promotion, for example, or some were passive towards the opportunity. They would just wait that it was granted for them. So if we diagnose this, how can we have the courage still to take the leap or not?
If we dig into the emotion of fear, we see that each emotion requests a hidden need. It's a little bit like, when you're thirsty, your body is sending you some signals, and immediately you know that you need to drink, so it's not a big deal. Well, when your body is sending you signals of an emotion, you have psychological need to know that you need to feed. For fear, it's security. So when you feel paralyzed with fear, you will need to find proof of security. What you're saying is that how can they have to accept to go over their fear in order to take the opportunity or even dare to ask more? I would say that everything will depend on what the person is feeling secure or not. If the only way for you to be secure is not to do it, then don't do it. Unless you know that this is right, that you are not capable to do it because you're too afraid, then you will have to ask for help. And the help could be books, could be coach, could be mentor. But we really have to understand when it comes to leadership that this is a systemic approach that we need to take. A leader only is a leader thanks to his or her followers. There is no leadership without followership. And of course, when you're talking about leadership, you prefer be a leader than be a follower. But when you understand that be a leader is be part of a system, and this system is only working if you have allies. So I would say, yes, you can function the way I said, as I said from the beginning, first trying to switch the limited beliefs into positive beliefs, then understanding where you're situated in the curve. But the third thing is really trying to understand the system I'm navigating in. I'm not alone. And for this fear disappearance, I need to find allies. And I would say those allies will arrive only when you will be able to map your environment. So that's why I would say the third tool I would like to give you is the tool of the sociogram.
Okay.
The sociogram is this, I would say, professional environment cartography, where you will try to situate yourself toward the others with arrows coming from you to the other, from the other to you, putting plus if you have good relationship, minus if you have bad relationship, and equal if you don't have really a relationship. Trying to understand that with 5, 6 actors that you're dealing with daily, and of course, trying to understand how the actors are linked. And you will see that sometimes you have a minus with someone, but you realize that this someone is a very good friend of someone else, and you don't understand why this someone else is so distant. And this is when you really realize that you are part of a system and who could be your good allies. Sociogram has been invented by Michel Crozier, who was a French sociologist, very interested to understand, I would say, the unconscious relationship and the influence of people towards the others. And Michel Crozier is talking about the different powers that are inside of a system. That is very interesting to understand. And he's saying that once we do the sociogram, you need to put the different power over each actor. One very visible power is the coercitive power, which is the PC, the coercitive power, CP. So basically that's the power of decision, yes, no, stop. So this is usually the tip of the pyramid. But there are many other powers that you need to be aware of, and trying, when you understand who are your allies, realizing that, there is someone with a power of information, for example, people who know a lot. And usually the power of information is not on the top of the pyramid, it comes on the ground. Same thing with power of network. You have people who are very social, they're speaking a lot. You need to know who has this power of socializing, the power of networking. So, and you have power of expertise. That is also very important, expert that you need to deal with, like IT. If you have a plus relationship with IT, for example, maybe If you have a problem with your computer, well, computer will be replaced sooner than the others. And then you have the power of nuisance. The power of nuisance, very interesting power, is really the power of opposition. And sometimes you have people, politically speaking, who are just saying no to a project you don't understand because it doesn't make sense collectively, but it's because of political agenda. So why am I talking to you like this? Coming back to the fear. You will not be working on your fear by yourself. Yes, you have an entire whole being work to do in order to have acceptance. You can have books, you can have mentorship, you can coach, but this will never be effective unless you find allies. And again, allies could be found thanks to a clarification of the professional environment through the sociogram.
Gila, according to your experience, is there a gender difference between the self-limiting beliefs in women and men leaders?
That's an excellent question. Following my experience as a coach, what I would say is that a man will always apply to a position for what he can do, and a woman will always apply to a position for what she knows, which means that even in the fact of answering, the job search, we could see a difference from self-limited beliefs from a woman point of view. What is interesting here is to see that a woman will always think, I would say, about being the best, trying to have a very high level expectations. And I would say that I really see more perfectionism in women than men. Not to say that men don't want to be perfect, but they have an idea of perfection that is very different than women. I would say that men will really have this notion of practicality. So as long as the thing is happening, it's fine. The way the thing happened matters a lot for women. So for women, it's not only the fact that the thing is happening, it has to be happening the way they planned. So I would say that for a woman, you also have to add a very big dimension of image. And when I say that, it means that for women, there are multiple choices that men don't have. I would say that men, whether it's tie or suit or color, we have very different things than women who will choose makeup, who will choose accessories, who will choose things that will be more symbolic. And so for this, the self-limited belief also concern for women more the question of the body than the men. So this physicality dimension for women is something to be taken in account, because it's really something that will, I would say, be a burden psychologically speaking. The way I look will really have an influence towards whether people will see me as self-confident or not. So what I could see as a coach, or when I'm coaching women leaders, is that this notion of not be at the level or not liking a part of her body, or always trying to think that there is better. How can I be better? That's really something that I hear a lot when I'm working with a woman. Whether when I'm working with a man, it will be more, okay, so go ahead, tell me how can I discover a new field that could add to my knowledge or that could add to my expertise. So the notion of correction is not so much from a man's side. Women are coming to be coached more, I'm not saying as a punishment, but because they have conscious there is something missing. Men will be more coming in order to refine something that they know it's working already. So it's very interesting because this as a coach is something that I could see. And the way to answer is also very different. When I'm working with a woman, I would dare to talk, especially about the way they dress or the way they position themselves, posture also. Regarding men, I will talk about it, but less from a physical point of view. Even if the posture is going to be very important, but we will work more about the shake hands or the way to look at the camera in order to really develop charisma. Those are tips that could be very differently applied from a woman or a man point of view.
So the good thing is that both need to work on their leadership skills regardless of gender and regardless of, I mean, everyone has some skills that are missing that he needs to work on. And how does these self-limiting beliefs affect the way you're dealing with your team, the way you're leading a team?
It affects it a lot, because a team, again, is a reservoir of followers. And those potential followers, and again, it's not because you have a team that you have followers. You have a team, but you also could have people who are judging you. You have a team and you can have some people who can expect you to fail. So sometimes in terms of self-limiting belief, the leader is feeling this. They only come in the room for the first time when they're taking the job, and they could feel the energy, whether people wonder, okay, who is he or who is she? Will he be as good as the previous one? So could feel immediately in the air some resistance. And that's why I say very often this sentence. People think that it's all about creating between leader and follower, creating confidence. And I'm always say, no, it's not about creating trust. It's about deconstructing distrust, which means it's all about deconstructing, killing the mistrust that people have the first time they see you. So it's really a lot of work, and I insist on this notion of nonverbal. It's a lot of work for people to feel that you are there for them. The first tip I can give is, I would say, the level of mental availability. You need to be mentally available. People need to feel your presence. When you're talking about charisma, for example, charisma comes from people who don't have self-limiting beliefs. I'm not saying that they don't have self-limiting beliefs before talking to you or after talking to you. But when they are talking to you, there is nothing else in the world that matters. They are emptying their mind to be available, to offer their presence to you. And this is what leader needs to learn when they want to have charisma. Self-limiting beliefs are not a pretext to make your psychoanalysis in front of people. People are not here for that. I'm going to give you a concrete example. I was wondering, I remember one example. So I was coaching a leader, and this leader asked me to come to see how he was talking in front of his team. Okay? And so I was very afraid public speaking, and he was always planning to say the right thing, and you could see in his eyes that he was, in fact, with him more than with them. He was very afraid, and he was a little bit shaking hands, and he had to speak about the budget of the year. And so he's coming in the room. He looks more or less terrified to the team, and immediately we could see in his eyes that he was looking at the other, but without looking really, okay? You could see that with the pupil coming like as if it was a dilatation. And so he was like explaining things, and while he was explaining, he had less shivering. He was a little bit more confident, but people looked at him, and I was part of the team. And when he spoke about budget of the year, he didn't look at them, and he was scratching his nose. Oh. There was at one point, something that was a problem. And I heard them saying, I told you there was a problem with budget. So what you need to understand with this example is that because of self-beliefs, because of self-limited beliefs, the person showed doubts, but not on the fact that he was not thinking he was at the level. He showed doubt on what he was saying. So that's why it's so important to understand, yes, you can have self-limited beliefs. You can find yourself zero, bad, ugly. We don't care. But when you are in front of the audience, when you are in front of a team, this is a professional mistake to self-doubt. Again, I said at the very beginning, remember that doubt is what makes us human. So a leader who don't doubt is just someone who thinks that he's, arrived. So it's good to have doubt, but never when you are in front of your team. When you are in front of your team, when you are in front of an audience, when you are in front of people, you need to get this concentration to give and to be available to the other. And then after, of course, you can come back to your own doubts. You can discuss about it to some people. But I would say that professionally speaking, if you show your doubts while you're talking, people wonder, okay, but is he really believing what he's saying? They will not think, oh, he's not, he's not very at ease when he's talking. They will think, okay, is he lying to us? Does he manipulate us? So this is what they will think. So if you have doubts about something, try to either put them aside, or if it's interesting for the others to know you doubt about something professionally speaking and you want to share your doubts with the others. But if it's about the fraud syndrome that you have, again, people are not in the theater to observe how bad you think you are. They are not interested because themselves have their problem. So psychologically speaking, put your personal things aside when you have a relationship from a professional point of view.
Exactly. I was going to ask you, how do you make a difference between self-doubt and showing vulnerability in a concrete example? Because today leaders are asked to show really their doubts, as you just said, and their vulnerability. So what is the difference between showing the doubt in a good way and showing it in a bad way?
Excellent question. And it comes to this notion of authenticity. A lot of people get wrong and think that authenticity is natural. I need to be natural. I need to be genuine. People need to see me. It's like, those stars were looking without makeup. Okay. So one day I was working with another leader, and the leader is coming and says, I don't know why, but people don't like me when I'm natural. I don't understand. People want to see me authentic, but when I'm talking to them for very important matters, I'm always seated, on the desk and very relaxed, and I talk to them, and I'm doing this all the time. And this is the way I am naturally. And people don't like it. And I told the guy, and I said, people don't want to see you in pajama. Nature is not authenticity. To be natural is really to be not dressed, to be going in a very loose, way to work. You don't do this. And this is the same thing with self-doubt and vulnerability. Vulnerability is still the polite way to admit that you don't know everything, that you also have to struggle. But I would say that you need to have the biggest confidence in order to do this. People who are really vulnerable are people who have the self-confidence to look at the other and say, listen, I need you because I don't know everything. And on this is what happened. And I'm not on the top right now of my energy. But for this, you need to find yourself the strength, the courage, and the confidence to say it. So it's not because you have, little self-limited, do you think I'm good? Tell me I'm good. People hate that. Of course, again, you can find a mentor, you can find a coach, you can find someone, a friend, someone of your family that you can accept to say, you know what, today it was so hard and I'm not feeling at the level. But you will never say that the way you say it to your team. It will not inspire the team. That would be a professional mistake. But talking to the team eye on eye and saying, on this topic, I feel that I'm less expert than you. I feel that I need you. And I feel that if I were to be the only one to treat this field, it would be an impostor. It would be a fraud. But see, what we expect from a leader is to lead. And to lead is to show the way. So you need to get the energy for people to follow you, For this, you need to be with them. You're paid to be with them fully. And for this, you need some time to quit a little bit of yourself, because the self-whining, the self-limited beliefs, sometimes, again, it's a more secure place than to dare to go to the other.
Indeed.
Sometimes we prefer to stay with the belt of, I call it radio myself, than going to the other, because going to the other, you never know. People might think you're bad. It's not the problem. You're not here to be loved. You're here to inspire. You're here to create synergy. You're here to inspire collaboration. For this, it's a real deployment of energy. So you don't need to think about anything else than what could be useful for the others.
So can we, as a tip, ask ourselves this question? What is useful for other, or how can I inspire my team before acting upon a certain behavior, to be able to discernate whether it's self-doubt or is it authenticity?
Excellent. Very good idea. Let's say that I had the list that we did at the beginning and say, I'm not good in public speaking, I'm not good at this job. Okay, I'm not good at public speaking. Can it inspire my team? I'm not good at this job. Can it inspire my team? I'm not good at this job. I don't think this would inspire my team, because if I say that, my team will look at me as a fraud and they will not want to follow me. I'm not good at public speaking. Well, you know what? Maybe others in the team are not that good. So beginning a talk by saying, I hope you will forgive me, because public speaking is not my major. But I'm going to make an effort because I really want you to understand what is the point of today. That might be interesting. So see, that's really how you balance between admitting that you are not someone who is above all the criterias, that you have imperfections, and something that will be too intimate and really putting doubts to the team of your own legitimacy.
Thank you so much. The good thing is that we can train, as you said, our brain and our mindset to function in a different way than what we have been educated on, maybe in our educational system. So what advice would you give to everyone who's listening and who feels that he or she has still self-doubts?
Some advice is, I would say, keep your doubts, because your doubts make you human. So you can be proud of accepting the fact that you're not someone who would be, not likable. In fact, and I would not mention the brand, but we are likable because of our defaults and because of our weaknesses. Now, please don't sink into this wonderful swimming pool of whining, reminding your imperfections. This is not good for you, and this is really not good for anybody else, okay? So if you feel like you're going down, again, you're on the sadness and the really end of the curve, depression, it's time for you to think, okay, how can I specify this limited belief? How can I try to understand sociologically my environment to find my allies? How can I better understand if what I'm saying to others, professionally speaking, can inspire them, or is it something that I need to journaling for me? Sometimes doing diary could be very good, and trying to see the evolution and try to see what is coming as a repetitive and rumination, a repetitive mode. So the advice is, again, self-limiting beliefs are not poison. They're what makes you human. Now you need to find a way to get away of this limitation, whether you think that it's interesting to share it, because if you share it, it's not a self-limiting belief. It becomes a limiting belief. And this is what you want, to really gradually get to a level of not having self-limited beliefs. And again, if you're not sharing it, you can keep it for yourself and try to work on yourself, listening to yourself by trying to find what type of occupation, what type of activity you can do in order to get rid of this specific problem.
Thank you so much for definitely inspiring a lot of the people who are listening with us. It's been a pleasure to discuss this topic with you today, and we hope that we will cross paths again in the future.
Thank you, Heba. It was my pleasure.